Germany's Ursula von der Leyen has addressed the European Parliament in Strasbourg as she winds up her bid to become the first woman president of the European Commission. It was her last chance to make her case to EU lawmakers still on the fence about her nomination. Von der Leyen needs to secure a majority in a secret confirmation ballot being held later today. In her speech, she sought to allay concerns of lawmakers who have criticized her for being overly vague, laying out a number of ambitious policy points on topics including trade, gender equality, migration, and Brexit. There was also a big appeal to the Green lobby, with von der Leyen pledging a Green Deal for Europe in her first 100 days. Achieving her goals on climate change, she said, would require a new sense of unity.
We must first rediscover our unity. If we are united on the inside, nobody will divide us from the outside. If we close the gaps between us, we can turn tomorrow's challenges in tomorrow's opportunities. Honourable members, our most pressing challenge is keeping our planet healthy. This is the greatest responsibility and opportunity of our times.
Let's bring in now DW's chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane, who joins us here in the studio. And our Brussels bureau chief, Max Hofman, is standing by at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Max, I'll turn to you first because her nomination has been controversial, especially among Parliament deputies. This was really her last chance to convince them. Do you think that she did? Because, I mean, we just heard from the Greens and they say, we're still not backing her.
It seems, though, that the stars are aligning in favor of Ursula von der Leyen. We talked to a couple of MEPs here in the meantime, and even the Greens that were the first to say we are not going to vote for Ursula von der Leyen after meeting her last week said this was a pretty good speech. We talked to one representative of the Belgian Greens, for example, and I asked her on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best score, what do you give Ursula von der Leyen for that speech? And she said a 7 or an 8. So she really managed to cater towards the Greens. Whether this really changes their overall decision not to vote for her, that's something they're going to have to hash out this afternoon when the political groups meet. But if even the Greens are a little shaky now on their position, it means that she probably swayed some votes among the Social Democrats. It probably also means that the EPP is even more firmly behind her than before, EPP being the Conservatives, her own party. So most people we talk to here seem to think that she's going to make it.
Okay, and no matter which way you cut it, though, at the end of the day, this is a historic vote. This is the first time that a woman has gone up for president of the European Commission. She addressed that issue. Let's have a listen, and then I'll get your reaction thereafter.
I will ensure full gender equality in my College of Commissioners. If member states do not propose enough female commissioners, I will not hesitate to ask for new names. Since 1958, there have been 183 commissioners. Only 35 were women. That is less than 20%. We represent half of our population. We want our fair share.
Quoting some embarrassing statistics there, Melinda, is this gender card working for her or against her, you think?
We'll know this evening, but I think it could very well work for her because the party groups that she most needs to convince, she has the Conservatives behind her anyway, and they like, by the way, the fact that she's a woman, but she's also a mother of 7 children. That plays well with Conservatives. So the other party groups that she needs to convince are Social Democrats and also members of the Liberal Party. That's the market-friendly party. And I think on both counts, there are a lot of MEPs, members of the European Parliament, who do support stronger roles for women. So I think she is possibly likely to ratchet up a little bit in their estimation on the basis of that really quite clear statement right at the outset of her speech.
Max, tell us, because one of the big issues has also been the fact that she is not the so-called lead candidate, the Spitzenkandidat. Just walk us through the controversy there and how big of a barrier this could be to her election.
Well, as you know, the lead candidate principle was invented 5 years ago. And the idea behind it was that only one of those lead candidates of the different political groups here in the European Parliament would be eligible to become Commission President afterwards. This worked quite well 5 years ago because the two biggest groups back then, the Social Democrats and the Conservatives, were on the same page and said, okay, the European People's Party, the Conservative, had the largest share of their vote, and Jean-Claude Juncker was their lead candidate, and therefore he will be elected among parliamentarians. We have a majority, and this will work. So the leaders really didn't have another choice but to acknowledge this and say, okay, we're on board with it, if they didn't want to risk a huge institutional fight. This time, the parliament did not have a majority behind one of those lead candidates, neither behind the lead candidate of the Conservatives, who was Manfred Weber, neither behind nor the candidate of the Social Democrats, who was Franz Timmermans. And that's why leaders took over. They took control of the process, and now the European Parliament is complaining about Ursula von der Leyen because she was not on the campaign trail, because she was not one of the official lead candidates, and because effectively it takes away some of the power that the European Parliament fought for and actually got 5 years ago.
Melinda, how is her candidacy playing back at home in Germany?
Mixed, at least heretofore. We don't know about the response that German citizens will have had to hearing that, I must say, unusually strong speech coming from Ursula von der Leyen. She's not known as a fiery speaker, but there was quite a bit of emotional pathos at the end of that speech. So last week, a survey showed that only about 1 in 3 Germans felt that she would make a good president of the European Commission. That depended a bit on party affiliation. Those who were affiliated either with the Conservative Party or the free market-oriented FDP Liberal Party, a slight majority said they did think she'd make a good Commission president, but on the whole, not a lot of resounding support. That's partly because she's had a tough job here as defense minister, instituted reforms that haven't yet fully played out. There has been some criticism of her leadership, and in some ways, her image here at home is less bright than it is in many other European countries.
Okay. Max, how will this vote now play out for the rest of the day? And do European leaders have another surprise candidate perhaps up their sleeves if Parliament votes Ursula von der Leyen down?
Right now, she's still being quizzed in the plenary room of the European Parliament here. This will go on until approximately 12 o'clock local time, so another hour or so, because many of the parliamentarians still have questions. There's only so many things you can talk about in about 40-minute speech, so there'll be more specific questions. She's being grilled, but the big politicians, the top shots, the political group leaders have already asked their questions. Then in the afternoon, the different political groups will meet to discuss how they're going to act. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the members of those political groups will follow the recommendation made by the group. Take the Social Democrats, for example. They will most likely recommend voting for Ursula von der Leyen, but the German delegation of that group, the SPD, was very adamant about not voting for her. By the way, something that raised some eyebrows around here, also among Social Democrats from other European countries. And then this evening at 6 o'clock, we have the secret ballot. We have the vote. It'll take a while to count all those votes, and we do expect an official result by 7:30. We do expect her to win, maybe by a small margin, but she can't be sure because it's a secret ballot. And if she loses, we're back to square one, and the leaders will have to suggest someone else over the summer.
Okay, so a very jam-packed day today. The stakes are high, certainly a historic day for the European Union. Max Hofmann in Brussels, Melinda Crane here in the studio. Thank you so much to both of you.